Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to another session on production and operations management. In our last session we completed our first unit in which we learnt about 10 critical areas in operations management, and we also read about new trends in operations management. We concluded operations management as a discipline has progressed steadily. New tools, techniques, processes, procedures, methods and mechanisms evolved and still continue to do so. Operations management is as important for services business as for manufacturing operations. Number of physical and natural science has helped us in operations management, and it seems will continue to do so for foreseeable future. Operations management discipline has bright future as the global competition stiffens and organizations always in search for productivity enhancement methods which operations management provides. We also looked at the new trends in operations management, and we discussed global focus, just-in-time performance, supply chain partnering, rapid product development, mass customization, empowered employees, environmentally sensitive production and ethics. In this session we will start our unit 2, production systems in issues and environment. Agenda for this session is globalizations and operation management strategies, global corporations, operations management in action, reasons to globalize, globalization and cultural issues, conclusions. Now I will request Sir Abbas to advance our understanding on this topic.
Well, thank you, Aisha. You very well summarized what we covered in Unit 1, and you will recall that in our Unit 1 in 2 sessions, we time and again discussed globalization and internationalization of business. And we'll continue that discussion, that business environment and operations environment, how global business really function in its environment in a globally competitive world, be it production, be it services. We'll start with giving you some, discussing some strategies of some multinationals. For example, we are all familiar with Boeing, an American corporation, and although they produce, finally they assemble their planes in Washington, USA, but they are sold and they are used all over the world. Similarly, Bentley Corporation moves inventory to store around the world faster than the competition by building flexibility into design, production, and distribution. As you know, Benton is an Italian corporation. It has 6,000 stores in 120 countries. That means there will be some store around you in your country, wherever in the Commonwealth of online learning you are, be it in Nepal or be it in Sri Lanka or be it in Pakistan or India. When we discuss the operations environment or the business environment, we have to be very familiar, we have to be very clear, regardless the business is domestic or business is multinational. Its operation in one way or the other is associated, means we cannot overlook the international or global aspect of business. I'll give you another example of Sony Corporation. For example, Sony purchases components from suppliers in Thailand, Malaysia, around the world. although it is a Japanese company, but it has 50 domestic and 89 international affiliated companies. Means you can realize the size and scope of this corporation. And its annual sales are 78 billion in revenues and employees 167,800 employees around the globe. I mean, that gives us a view of the size and scope of the corporation. I'll give you another example. Volvo. Volvo is considered a Swedish company, but it's controlled by an American company, Ford. And the current Volvo S40 is built in Belgium, shares its platform with Mazda 3, built in Japan, and Ford Focus, built in Europe. We'll briefly discuss Volvo in our coming few slides. Similarly, Haier, which is a Chinese company, produces components which are basically refrigerators and air conditioners and the like, white goods what we call, in USA, elsewhere in the world as well. But 1/3 of the US market is controlled by the Haier Corporation. Now, we discussed Volvo. Let's look at this map, the Volvo's global operation. We see Volvo is active here in the United States of America. Volvo is active here in South America. Volvo is active here in Europe. Volvo is active here in South America, South Africa. This is South Africa, yeah. Here in India, here in Southeast Asia, and in Australia. We see from all over the globe. Volvo's global operations are scattered all over the world. And this is the environment in which operations management and production and operation management is taken care. We see Volvo trucks, Renault trucks, then Mack trucks, construction equipment, buses, Volvo cars, Volvo Aero, Volvo powertrain, and so on. Means this is the quantum of work that Volvo is there and how these things are integrated. That is the premise of, that is the kind of environment in which a multinational functions. I'll give you further example of Volvo global sales and employees. We see in North America, Volvo's sales are 18% of the total, and it has 14% of the workforce generates 18% of the sales. 14% of the workforce means 12,640 employees in USA. Volvo, where it's headquartered in Europe, it has 45% of the sales and 58% of the employees. In South America, 5% of the workforce generate 8% of the sales. Asia, 20% of the workforce generate 21% of the sales. And others, 3% of the workforce generate 8% of the sales. It seems that in the United States of America, the operations are more productive, for example. Means less percentage of workforce generate more percentage of sales. That is another reason why the companies globalize. Now, let's look at the Haier. We discussed Haier as a global corporation. Haier is the world's 4th largest, a Chinese company, white goods manufacturer. White good is basically, I'm sure you're familiar with the term. White goods is a term which is used for the durable goods, your air conditioners, refrigerators, washing machines, and so on and so forth. There used to be that these type of goods used to be painted white. That is why they were called white goods. Although the coloring schemes has been changed, but they still are known as white goods. One of the China's top 100 IT companies. Haier has 240 subsidiary companies and 30 design centers, plants, and trade companies, and more than 50,000 employees throughout the world. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you look at in your supermarket or in your electronics store, you will find the products manufactured by Haier. I mean, although that is a Chinese company, but that will be active, and you will be having the products in Switzerland, you'll be having products in New Zealand, in Australia, in India, and everywhere. And manufacturing, trading, financial services, and so on and so forth. Haier's 2006 global revenues were RMB 107.5 billion. Means that is the quantum of work, that is the quantum of business that these multinationals do. I'll give you some examples of some of the multinationals. These were the few examples which I gave you for the purpose of looking at the understanding how international companies operate and the size of business it is and the complexity of business that that the operation managers can face. For example, Citicorp. If you have a Citibank, I'm sure you do. Ladies and gentlemen, in your country, you will have a Citibank. Although its home country is USA, its sales outside the United States is 34%. And workforce outside, assets outside the home country is 46%. Similarly, Colgate-Palmolive. I mean, it produces a range of products and services. Although again an American company, but its sales outside USA are 72% and assets 63%. Dow Chemical, again an American corporation, its sales outside the United States 60% and assets 50%. Gillette, an American corporation, its sales 62% outside USA, assets 53% outside USA. Honda, a Japanese company, Honda car, Honda motorcycles, Honda generators and whatnot. Outside home country, its sales is 63% and assets 36%. IBM, an American corporation. I'm sure IBM is active throughout the Commonwealth of Online Learning. It has the sales outside 57%, assets 47%, and workforce outside the USA is 51%. Almost half the workforce of IBM is elsewhere in the world than the home country. Well, we're discussing ICI, although it's a British company, but its sales are 68% outside Britain and assets 50% assets outside. Nestle, I'm sure you use Nestle juices, Nestle this, Nestle that, Nestle chocolates and so on. It has 98% sales outside Switzerland and 95% of workforce of assets outside Switzerland and 97% of the workforce outside the Switzerland. Similarly, Philips, a Dutch company, 94, 85, 82. Siemens, a German company, 51, 38% workforce outside. Unilever, where you use soaps and shampoos and whatnot. Although that's a Britain and a Dutch company, but the sales outside the home country is 95% and so on. The point which I was driving at is that although we see that this company is either national, we see it as national or we see it as multinational, but I think the boundaries between a national company and international company, it is blurring. Generally, I would say, no matter how small a domestic company is or no matter how big a large company is, I think the international relationship or an international interaction is very, very critical for operations managers.
Sir, can you explain the nature of international production environment by giving some example of a manufacturing operation?
Well, Aisha, yes, I would. Let's think of Boeing. We started with Boeing as a multinational. Let's look at the manufacturing operation of Boeing 787 and look at the suppliers, who supplies the components and parts and subsystems for Boeing. For example, let's say there are a number of French companies who supply parts. For example, Lepcore is a French company, passenger doors are provided by them. Lebnil, another French company, provides wiring. Dassault, another French company, designs and the software for Boeing. Then, for example, Dell, which is a German company, provides interior lighting. Then, let's say there are a number of British companies who provide a number of components. For example, Cobham, fuel pumps and valves. Rolls-Royce, which is a British company, provides engines. Smith Aerospace provides central computer system. BAE Systems provide electronics. No, this Italian company, Aliena Aeronautics provides upper center fuselage, horizontal stabilizer. Then this Toray Industries, which is a Japanese company, provide carbon fiber and wiring and tail units and so on. Then again, another Japanese companies provide central wing box. Another Japanese company provide forward fuselage, fixed section of wings, and then Chinese company provides rudder, and so on. I mean, this is the nature of a manufacturing operation. Means although these 787 is assembled in Washington in the United States of America, but parts and systems and components and subsystems are provided by companies all over the world. That is the nature of manufacturing operation.
This is amazing that in order to manufacture a product, large number of production facilities all over the world are involved. And certainly it would involve complex arrangement to coordinate such a complex production operation. Would you let us know why do the companies globalize actually?
Well, Aisha, I think it should be clearer by now. Why do companies globalize? We have seen a number of reasons. I mean, these large companies like Haier or Sony or Philips and so on, their presence all over the world. I think the reasons are from the tangible, which you can really actually measure, to intangible. Okay. We'll look at the first and foremost reason to globalize is the economics. It is basically the cost. Let's look at the reasons. Reduce cost, labor, taxes, and tariffs. Another reason is to improve supply chain. Another reason is to provide better goods and better services, understand the markets, learn to improve the operations, attract and retain global talents. Now we'll describe a little greater details all these reasons to globalize, and it is very essential, ladies and gentlemen, for you to understand that why a company is present in such and such market in such and such company. It could be, it is not one reason why a company is present in country A, B, C, and why a company is not present in certain market. It is basically a combination of a number of reasons which we have discussed. For example, when we say to reduce cost, there are a number of locations where your, let's say, cost of doing business is less, taxes are less, tariffs are less, manpower is cheap. I mean, there are a number of, and then there are trade blocks. For example, where the block members or block partners, they actually give to each other a preferential treatment. For example, NAFTA, CEFTA, European Community. This concept of maquiladoros is basically, it's a Spanish terminology, and used basically manufacturing operation in a country which is does not have the raw material or the market. The only purpose of this philosophy is that in that country imports the raw material, manufacture the goods and services, and then send it back to the country or some other countries. Now, the arrangement, in fact, why such arrangement? Because of the labor is cheap and taxes and tariffs and the other arrangement, they are preferential. Similarly, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which has a number of countries, then APEC, CITO, Mercosur is basically the South American countries regrouping at the pattern of European Union. So reduce cost is one of the prime reason why the companies globalize. Okay, this is the view of one of the Maquila in Mexico. Means raw material comes from country and then processed and then sent to another country. Now, improve supply chain. We see it is significant. Why do we locate, let's say, why do Boeing would locate in South America, or Boeing would locate in South Africa or in Asia? There is always a tangible reason in that, and that reason is to locate where either raw material is available, means raw material is cheap or economic to buy, or labor force is available and cheap, or certain special sort of a requirement to produce a good or service is available. For example, auto design in California, athletic shoes production in China because of the labor availability, perfume manufacturing in France because of the feedstock needed for the perfume manufacturing is available abundantly in that region. That's why the perfume manufacturing they'll prefer to locate in France. I mean, improving supply chain is another reason why the company is globalized. Then provide better goods and services. Means, let's say if you produce something on the other part of the, let's say, globe, but your market is at a different continent, means your operation is not going to be as efficient, as economic as it can be. That's why the company is globalized for making on-time deliveries, to meet the cultural variables, to improve customer service. I mean, if a company sitting somewhere, let's say in Brazil, wants to provide services in South Africa, it is difficult. It means they will have to have certain operations in South Africa in order to serve that market, in order to serve the customers in South Africa better. Then understand the markets. Unless and until a large corporation, let's say Unilever, unless Unilever has presence in India or in Nepal or in Sri Lanka or in Bangladesh or in Pakistan, they won't actually understand the market. They have to have, in order to understand the market, same is for, let's say, McDonald's or Hardee's or food chains. If they want to locate in certain particular country, they need to understand the market. They have to have the presence there. Learn to improve the operations. I mean, General Motors partners with Toyota or with the Japanese car manufacturers. In fact, it seems important that it was after the World War II, the Japanese, rather 70s and 80s, when Japanese emerged as a quality car makers, and Americans went there to learn from Japanese. Similarly, equipment and layout have been improved using Scandinavian. Scandinavians are very good at, very expert at ergonomic practices, right? I mean, ergonomic practices basically the human side of the human-machine interface. The Scandinavians are very good at it. And to improve the operations, all other nations, if they want to learn, they would like to coordinate and collaborate with let's say, the Scandinavian countries, that is Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and so on. Now, attract and retain a global talent, or better employment, offer better employment opportunities. You know, globally, there is always a dearth of qualified manpower. The manpower which can actually contribute positively and economically to the corporation. As such, let's say, why do the American software companies, they will come and locate their businesses in Bangalore, India? Because to attract the global talent. Not only they'll be there in India, they'll take from India or from Pakistan, they'll take people back to USA. As such, certain people are more prone to relocation. They'll feel much comfortable to relocate, and so on. Incentives for the people who like to travel, means attract a global talent is another reason companies globalize. Then there are certain cultural and ethical reasons also. Cultures can be quite different. For example, culture of Bangladesh, culture of let's say New Zealand, entirely different, and or Australia, different. They have a different work ethics, punctuality, lunch breaks, environment, intellectual property rules, laws, and so on. Child labor, for example, in certain countries, their laws are relaxed, in others, they are not. I mean, there are numerous reasons why companies globalize.
Sir, it seems that although the companies benefit from the global operations, but these benefits are not without addressing a lot of complex issues. Would you explain some of these issues?
Yes, Aisha. I mean, it seems that global operation generates lots of revenues and lots of profits, and obviously a big business. But it is not without solving and addressing a lot of complexities. I'll only invite, ladies and gentlemen, your attention to a list of things. For example, national literacy rate. Means in order to locate somewhere, the companies ought to consider what is the literacy rate. Rate of innovation means how innovative that nation is, rate of technology change, number of skilled workers, political stability, product liability laws, export restrictions, languages, work ethics, taxes, inflation, interest rates, number of miles of highway, phone system. Means in order to locate, let's say any company, let's say European or American or Australian, want to locate in a developing country or in country A or country B, will have to look at all these things before they actually come up with a decision. Again, I'll invite your attention that products, maybe you may be using product in Bangladesh or in India, but the parent company may be in some other country. For example, we see these are general Firestone tires or chocolate or Häagen-Dazs ice cream or Jaguar autos and so on. But these are the Volkswagen is basically the parent company of Lamborghini. Similarly, MGM Movies is although famous in USA, but it's owned by Sony, is a Japanese company. And similarly, look at some of these products, the home country, Japanese, United States, Switzerland. Means this is a sort of complexity involved in an international operation, Aisha.
Thank you, sir. We have a much better understanding of global production and operations management issues. We learned that globalization is a universal phenomenon, and even the domestic or national companies can hardly avoid it because they are part of much larger networks. Companies, large and small, cannot overlook the environment they function. Companies can benefit from growing globalization if they position themselves properly. With these concluding thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude this session and see you in our next class. Till then, Allah Hafiz.